Every era creates a new path to wealth. And in the 80s, people built factories and financed empires. And in the 2000s, they built apps and chased venture rounds. But the next era, the one unfolding right now, it won't be built from scratch. It will be acquired. Wealth doesn't vanish between generations, it migrates. And every few decades, it finds a new route. And today, it's moving quietly out of boardrooms and beyond startups and into the hands of those who understand how to buy what others overlook. Because the smartest entrepreneurs aren't chasing the next big idea, they're buying proven ones. They don't start companies, they inherit engines, and they don't gamble on timing, they control it. That's the shift happening right now, a silent transformation from creation to control, from building to owning systems that already work. This isn't about Wall Street or corporate takeovers. It's about small and mid-sized businesses, the invisible infrastructure of the economy, changing hands in silence. And across the country, in warehouses, offices, and small towns, one generation is ready to step out and another is quietly stepping in. There's a quiet revolution happening beneath the noise of startups and venture funding. Entrepreneurs are no longer building everything from scratch. They're acquiring cash flow, customer bases, and credibility smarter, faster, and without giving up ownership. This series is about that revolution. Act 2, the doctrine begins. We call it the Advanced Laws of Acquisition. It's not a course, it's not theory, it's a doctrine from the playbook for how modern entrepreneur engineers ownership in silence while the market competes in noise. If you've ever looked at entrepreneurs who scale from one acquisition to 5, from operator to owner, this is where that transition begins. Because buying a company isn't success, owning intelligently is. And at Deal Founders, we've seen this pattern play out across more than 700 client acquisitions spanning over $1.8 billion in transaction value. And the same truth repeats every time. Those who treat acquisition as design, not discovery, outperform the market. They create wealth not by luck, but by architecture. Let's start with the truth about the market you're actually in. Act 3, the invisible market. According to Bain & Company's 2024 private equity report, over 98% of U.S. business sales happen off-market, unlisted, unadvertised, invisible. That's tens of millions of companies most buyers will never see. Yet every week, thousands of buyers chase the same listings. They're scrolling BizBuySell, Axial, and LoopNet, bidding against each other in public. That's not deal flow. It's a visibility trap. McKinsey's private markets study show that operators who build structured acquisition systems achieve 2.3 times higher close rates than those who rely on chance. Because in this game, visibility kills advantage and information creates it. That's why we built Deal Founders, to industrialize the entire buy-side process, to turn information into leverage and leverage into ownership. This is where the advanced laws begin, the science of compounding ownership and the architecture behind every quiet empire that you see rising today. Because the next great businesses won't be coded in garages or pitched to venture funds. They'll be acquired through precision. And the entrepreneurs who master these laws, they won't compete for attention. They'll control outcomes. They won't chase trends. They'll define timing. They won't build alone. They'll own intelligently. Because the game has already changed. Most people just haven't realized it yet. Act 4, proof of design case study. Every deal has a story, but the best stories are written long before the negotiation begins. So take Michael Grant, a logistics entrepreneur from Denver, and he wanted to buy, not build. So we designed his acquisition strategy end to end, defined his buy box, sourced Off-market leads structured the deal, modeled the financing, and built the outreach. And then he closed a $3.8 million acquisition, zero upfront capital, 10% held in escrow and then released post-close, 90% seller financed and performance-based. So if revenue held, the seller earned a full payout. If it dropped, payments paused. Michael didn't chase a listing. He executed a system, and that's not luck. That's leverage by design. Act 5, the architecture of advantage. When you study hundreds of outcomes like this, patterns appear. And it's not the largest buyer who wins, it's the one who moves first with clarity, data, and intent. Because in private markets, advantage isn't financial, it's architectural. The real game happens upstream. Who defines the environment where opportunities exist? Who reads the signals before others do? Who controls the narrative before valuation is ever discussed? Harvard's program on negotiation found that the party who frames diligence first sets valuation boundaries in 85% of outcomes. McKinsey calls this anchoring asymmetry, a 40% shift in perceived value without changing a single financial metric. Deloitte's 2024 M&A study adds another layer. They say buyers who own the narrative of diligence achieve 18% higher acceptance rates on initial offers than reactive buyers. And that's not persuasion, that's physics. Information is gravity. It bends perceptions and it pulls price into its orbit. Act 6, the evolution of the entrepreneur. Over the next decade, more than $12 trillion in private business ownership will transfer hands as baby boomer founders retire, and less than 20% have a succession plan. It's the single largest shift in middle market history, a generational handoff of cash flow, customers, and credibility. And yet, 90% of buyers are still competing for what's public instead of designing systems to access what's private. And that's the gap between entrepreneurship and acquisition architecture. And that's where this doctrine lives. Old buyers rely on brokers. Modern acquirers rely on data. Old buyers chase opportunity. Modern acquirers engineer inevitability. Old acquirers close once. Modern acquirers build systems that repeat. The difference is discipline. The discipline to turn information into momentum. Act 7, the laws themselves. This is where the advanced laws begin. A set of principles tested across hundreds of transactions, refined into repeatable precision. And you'll learn how to build proprietary deal flow from invisible markets, engineer negotiation psychology to frame valuation, design capital structures that multiply leverage, build integration flywheels that compound profit. You'll learn to manufacture liquidity instead of waiting for exits, and to use reputation as a system for inbound deal flow. And these aren't theories, they're laws, the immutable physics of acquisition. And at Deal Founders, we've tested them across 700 acquisitions in 40 industries. Deals close twice as fast. Cash flow grows 35% post-close. Capital risk drops 40%. This isn't education, it's execution architecture. Act 8, the philosophy of control. As you move through this series, remember one thing. Acquisition isn't about money, it's about control. Control of information, control of structure, control of narrative, because whoever controls those three controls the outcome. Act 9, the invitation. Each week, we'll release a new law, a new layer of the doctrine. Like Episode 2, Deal Sourcing, the Architecture of Discovery. How to find, frame, and filter opportunities before anyone else knows they exist. Then we move deeper into negotiation design, capital engineering, and the compounding systems that turns one acquisition into a machine. This isn't about chasing deals. It's about building inevitability. At Deal Founders, we don't sell frameworks. We replace the entire acquisition infrastructure end to end, from signal detection and outreach design to due diligence, financing, and post-close control. Every layer is engineered for precision before you ever send the first email. Our clients, they don't compete, they compound. If you're serious about buying your first or your next company, go to dealfounders.com and apply for our acquisition guarantee. If accepted, we don't coach you, we build the system beside you until you own. Because in this game, ownership isn't luck, it's structure. This is Deal Founders, the art of deal making.